Good evening. I am Renée Baron, a member of the Liberal Arts Department here, and I would like to welcome you to the 2020 Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Lecture. This is the 7th year of the series, conceptualized as a forum to encourage the Juilliard community to consider the life of Dr. Martin Luther King, his legacy, and its implications for contemporary society. We are excited, I can't tell you how excited we are this evening to have Clarence B. Jones, a contemporary and confidant of Dr. King, as our speaker. And to introduce him properly, I ask our own President Damian Woetzel to the podium.
Thank you so much, Renée, for that generous introduction and for this extraordinary series of events that populate Martin Luther King Week each year here at Juilliard. I want to acknowledge you and your colleagues in the Liberal Arts Department and in the Student Affairs Office for the tremendous work that you do. Yourself and Sabrina Tambara, Joan Warren, Rosalie Contreras, and our colleagues in Public Affairs, the Concert Office, Facilities and Recording. It really does take a community to make a community. So I'm grateful to you. We are really in an extraordinary moment in this school to welcome Dr. Jones and his wife, Lynn Walters, who have been with us for 2 days now and have been having a full Juilliard experience. Everything from attending classes to meeting with faculty and students. And this is sort of the culminating event, if you will, where we get to hear from Dr. Jones as part of this week and this specific moment. This happened in an extraordinary way. Our wonderful Provost and Dean, Ara Guzalimian, was standing in a customs line at the Lisbon airport, as one does. And he encountered a friendly face from the Kronos Quartet, who said to him, "Have you ever heard of Dr. Clarence B. Jones? Because we did an event with him last week." And he explained who Dr. Jones was. And he said, and the thing is, he went to Juilliard. And Ara thought to himself, that's just extraordinary and amazing, and returned home to Juilliard and presented this information. And as soon as he said Dr. Jones's name, my jaw dropped, because I'd met Dr. Jones as part of a previous life at the Aspen Institute where he was speaking, and I counted him as a hero. Jump ahead a few short months, and here we are with Dr. Jones returning home to Juilliard. So we are honored to have you here with us today, with revolutionary history in our midst, with a distinct Juilliard connection. Clarence Benjamin Jones was born January 8, 1931 in Philadelphia. He arrived at Juilliard as a high school student in 1946, playing the clarinet in the prep program. In my research, I discovered that at one of his Juilliard auditions, he played the Flight of the Bumblebee on the clarinet, no mean feat. And I should share with you that in response to this invitation, Dr. Jones, he enthusiastically agreed, but on the condition we would not ask him to play any Brahms or Beethoven. But I thought if we all asked together, he might be willing to play a little Flight of the Bumblebee later. Right. So we have to work on that. Right. As a high school student in Palmyra High School over in New Jersey, Dr. Jones was a highly engaged student, involved in numerous clubs and extracurricular activities, serving as first clarinetist in the 1949 New Jersey All-State Orchestra and the National Honor Society. Not surprisingly, he was voted most likely to succeed and was selected as the class valedictorian. His speech, "Education for a Better World," addressed breaking racial barriers. Even then, Dr. Jones was speaking necessary truths. After graduation from high school, he received a 4-year scholarship to attend Columbia University. Later on, he would earn a Juris Doctor degree from Boston University's School of Law. Following law school, Dr. Jones became active in the civil rights movement and went on to serve, as you've already heard, as the personal counsel, advisor, draft speechwriter, and close confidant and friend of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Through his work, Dr. Jones has dramatically impacted the course of American history. He coordinated the legal defense of Dr. King and the other leaders of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference against the libel suits filed against them and the New York Times by the police commissioner and other city officials of Birmingham, Alabama. The Supreme Court ruling in that case resulted in the landmark decision on the current law of libel. In April '63, he drafted the settlement agreement between the city of Birmingham and Dr. King to bring about the end of demonstrations and the desegregation of department stores and public accommodations. He personally smuggled out that letter from the Birmingham jail, scrawled on pieces of newspaper and scraps of paper, and thus has influenced not only the country, but the state of learning and the profound wisdom of that letter, which will resonate throughout history forever. And yes, he did assist Dr. King on the celebrated I Have a Dream speech that was delivered at the March on Washington on August 28, 1963. And I will say that I'm proud to know that Dr. Jones has referenced the ear training he received at Juilliard as a tool that enabled him to accurately capture and write into the suggested draft speeches requested by Dr. King the projected spoken sound of the words that he wrote for him. I had a feeling of this last night as we sat together listening to the Juilliard String Quartet, and Dr. Jones was dancing. He felt the music. And later on, as I was attempting to interview the Juilliard String Quartet, he interjected frequently. And among the things he said, because the words are music. Words are music. I look forward to hearing your words tonight, Dr. Jones. And so much more could be said about your accomplishments, from your work as an educator to your achievements in the business world, including becoming the first African-American partner in a Wall Street investment banking firm, and twice being recognized as Fortune magazine's Businessman of the Month. But I will stop here so that we may present you with a musical salute in honor of this occasion. Please join me in welcoming the artistic director of Juilliard's Music Advancement Program, known as MAP, and the principal clarinet of the New York Philharmonic, Anthony McGill.
Come on. No, brother. Go ahead, brother. Oh, you know how to make brother cry.
Well, speaking of crying, I'm glad I'm going to play the clarinet because it's going to be hard to put into words how I feel about you being here and how we in the Juilliard community feel about you being in our presence. And I will just say that this is a very strange coincidence. We met actually a couple years ago in California. He came up to me after a concert I played, and I was standing next to this giant, no comment on my height, okay? And I was just blown away that this man, this giant in our world, in our history, was standing there complimenting me on my clarinet playing when he was a hero. So next week, thanks to you and others like you, I'm gonna be soloing with the Alabama Symphony in Birmingham, playing a piece that was written based on the inspiration of the words of Dr. Martin Luther King, which is really just a strange life coincidence. And I just wanna thank you again. And I'll leave it there and perform a couple pieces that maybe you picked out. So the first piece is "Oh for the Wings of a Dove," arrangement by Mendelssohn. And another piece is a piece we're all familiar with. And I wasn't sure if it was this one or the next one that you would like to hear, but maybe I'll play them both. This one we're all familiar with, just a little excerpt. It brings us hope, it brings us joy, and that's what I'll leave you with.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
You bring us so much hope. You bring us so much joy.
Thank you.
And you know what? This might not be the one you were thinking about
No, that
playing.
is
Just
the
those
one.
two. It was.
That is.
But I have to play this last one. I promise. I'll leave you with that. We want to hear your words. And this is because I used to play. My former job was playing in the opera orchestra, and this little excerpt it's incomplete, but it's from one of the most beautiful pieces ever, Madama Butterfly.
Oh, yes. Come over here, brother. Come over here, brother. You honor me.
So much.
You honor me.
Oh, you honor us.
No.
You honor us. Thank you, Damian.
You know, he knows. He knows, and those of you who play the clarinet know that the embouchure. You understand? The embouchure and the way he plays is what makes the music so beautiful. Comes out through that instrument. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Right.
Thank you so much. The Juilliard School's President's Medal is the highest honorific title presented by the Office of the President, established to honor individuals who have made an indelible impact on the world and serve as significant role models at Juilliard and in the broader community. Dr. Jones, your life's work of social advocacy is the embodiment of the intention of the medal. I will now read the citation, and Dr. Jones, if you'd please join me.
Please, yes. Lord, have mercy. Thank you.
Dr. Jones, Juilliard has much to be proud of in you as a former student and a member of the Juilliard family. In honor of the abiding example you have set as an artist citizen and a citizen artist, and in recognition of your decades of dedication to the advancement of human and civil rights and your ongoing commitment in word and action to the betterment of American society, it is my distinct pleasure to award you the Juilliard School's President's Medal.
I have some news to share with you that is befitting on this occasion and honoring the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. here at Juilliard. A couple of hours ago, the president of the University of San Francisco called me to tell me that the governor of the state of California, Gavin Newsom, wanted to be sure that the University of San Francisco knew, and that I particularly knew, that he had just pardoned posthumously Bayard Rustin. Bayard Rustin, in a time when loving another man was a crime, was convicted sodomy in the state of California. Bayard Rustin was one of the people that Dr. King admired so much. I don't have time to tell you except to say this, that when the March on Washington was being planned, A. Philip Randolph, who was like Bayard Rustin's mentor, and Dr. King, they really wanted Bayard Rustin to be the executive director of the march. But the opposition among the founding committee members, many or most of them being black ministers at the time, was quite formidable. They opposed it. They talked about how, oh my God, if we have him as executive director, it's going to destroy the march and so and so. And there was this meeting. Bayard was not at the meeting. A. Philip Randolph and Dr. King were at the meeting. I was not at the meeting. But I am told accurately that after A. Philip Randolph listened to all of the objections as to why Bayard Rustin should not be the executive director, Dr. King got up and said, let he who has not sinned cast the first stone, or something like that. And then he went on to give the most impassioned defense of Bayard Rustin. Now, I had advised them on how to get this through. So when there was a motion for discussion, or have a discussion of it, and there was a second, I had told A. Philip Randolph he should call the vote, call the motion, limit the discussion. And he should say, all in favor? No, all opposed? No, all in favor say aye. And all opposed say no. We'll do it very quickly. And after they said, he said, the ayes have it. That's how he got it, so forth. So isn't that beautiful that on this day, this place, that I should be able to share this with you? Now, the pop singer James Brown once said to me, he used to nickname me Judge. He said, Judge, be careful how you treat people on the way up, for you never know whether you're going to need them on the way down. Lou Rawls, also a pop singer, said, music is the greatest communication in the world. Even if people don't understand the language that you're singing in, they will still know good music. Yes, I was born in January 1931, 89 years ago. In 1937, my parents, domestic household servants with no house of their own, placed me, their only child, on a Catholic boarding school run by the Sisters of the Blessed Sacrament in Cornwall Heights, Pennsylvania. Until then, I lived with my parents in the servants' quarters of the person they worked for in South Jersey. My mother, a maid and a cook, 8th grade education, and my father, a chauffeur, a gardener, fourth grade education. One time when I was sitting with my parents, visiting my parents, during a summer vacation from boarding school, I was sitting on a chair in the kitchen watching my mother washing and drying dishes by hand. I was about 8, 9 years old. I got up from the chair I was sitting on and grabbed a dish towel to help my mother. She snatched the towel from me and told me to go sit back down on that chair. She said, quote, "No son of mine is going to grow up washing dishes in some white folks' kitchen. The only things I ever want to see in your hands are a pencil and a dollar bill." This is the title of my memoirs. I'm currently writing about my almost 9-decade journey as an African American in this United States of America. Yes, when I was about 8 years old, my mother purchased a clarinet for me, which I was allowed to take to Catholic school. I could not foresee then how central my continued practice and playing the clarinet would become during years later of my life in public high school and shortly thereafter. Thomas Carlyle wrote that music is, quote, "is well said to be the speech of angels. In fact, nothing among the utterance allowed to man is felt to be so divine. It brings us near to the infinite," close quote. Or as John Dryden wrote in 1690, "As poetry is the harmony of words, so music is that of notes." In The Unforgettable Likeness of Being, Milan Kundera in 1984 wrote, "No one can get drunk on a novel or a painting, but who can help getting drunk on Beethoven's Ninth, Bartók's Sounds for 2 pianos and percussion, or the Beatles' White Album," close quote. Shakespeare in his Merchant of Venice wrote, "The man that hath no music in himself, nor is it not moved with the concord of sweet sounds, is fit for treasons, stratagems, and spoils. The motions of his spirit are dull at night, and his affection dark Erebus. Let no such man be trusted," close quote. I can remember the summers, especially the summer when I attended the Juilliard School of Music. I still remembered being grilled in ear training school about the notes A and F and C and D. As you do, I mean, at that time, I don't know whether you still do it, but at that time, particularly for those students who didn't play piano, at that time the teacher sat at the piano and the teacher would hit the note A on the piano. And then he or she, and then I had a woman. In fact, the most eerie thing happened to me. I thought I was gonna go crazy. I walked into one of these classes, and there was a woman teaching opera. And I walked into the room, and I looked, and she looked just like the woman who taught me ear training, only she was teaching opera. And the room looked like the room. It was, it had the notes on the board, the music on the board, and then there was a grand piano over there. It was freaky. I mean, it like blew me away. It was unbelievable. I knew I had, it was, anyway. Also, incredibly imprinted in my memory is the initial fear and trepidation I experienced when standing in a room watching and listening to some almost 75 young clarinetists warming up, playing scales, etc., demonstrating their dexterity and proficiency in playing their instruments. But as I listened and watched more carefully, my initial fear and anxiety subsided. I quickly concluded after listening to other persons awaiting audition that I can do that I may be as good as them or better. Then there occurred another unexpected confirmation of self-confidence, albeit initially fearful and downright scary. One day during the time I was a student at Juilliard, I went to a music store on West 48th Street in Manhattan between 6th and 7th Avenues called Manny's Music. Named after the presumed owner, Manny, middle-aged, friendly, fatherly figure with silver white hair, a darker complexion than most white people. Subsequently, I learned he was a Sephardic Jew. Manny's Music is where I and another instrumentalist, saxophonist, guitarist, drummers, clarinetists, went to purchase to have their instruments serviced and repaired, as well as purchase other reeds and mouthpieces, etc. The store had soundproof rooms where you could play your instrument prior to or after repair, or in some cases, just practice. Manny took a liking to me, treated me like I was a young son of his. He was proud of my playing ability as he witnessed and heard me practice and play in one of the rooms after my clarinet had been serviced one or more times. Also upstairs on the third floor again, a room padded to reduce the sounds to persons downstairs in the store, was a room where several professional jazz musicians, currently performing in one of the more nightclubs on West 52nd Street in New York City, would play before they went to work. One day when I went into Manny, he rushed over to me. Manny excitedly told me that Bird, Charlie Parker, was upstairs playing with a small instrumental group. He said that he had first time I was hearing it, he had spoken to Bird about me. He referred about Bird, this young clarinetist, he continued. He said, come upstairs, I want to introduce you to him. I accompanied Manny upstairs as I could hear the music being played. We entered the room. Affectionately, Manny said, Bird, this is the young man I was telling you about, wearing dark glasses, his alto saxophone hanging from his shoulder by a strap. Looking over his axe, Charlie Parker asked, you got your axe with you? Nervously, I replied, yes, it's downstairs. Manny interrupted and said, I'll go down and get it. He brought it up to me, and I took the parts of my clarinet from the case nervously, hands shaking, and started to assemble it. Other musicians in the room, professional playing with Bird, watched me as I put my clarinet together as they softly played different notes in the background. Bird asked me, what's one of your favorite jazz tunes? I responded, Back Home Again in Indiana. By that time, he and other musicians started to play Indiana, a shorthand reference from jazz musicians in those days for the song. But the tempo they played was far too fast for me to comfortably play. So I said to him and the other musicians, I can't play that fast. So they resumed in slower but a faster tempo. After playing the melody a couple of times and coming to the bridge, Bird nods to me. Now this was to indicate that the next time around, I was expected to intervene and improvise my participation. Once playing, the shaking in my hands subsided, and I regained the comfort and confidence of a good clarinetist that I was at the time. We continued to play a couple of other tunes together, like Stardust, How High the Moon, Sunny Side of the Street, Moonlight in Vermont, popular in those years. Afterward, Manny hugged me. Bird warmly looked over my shoulder and shook my hand, saying something to the effect, not necessarily the exact words, Juilliard must be doing a good job. During my senior year in law school at Boston University, I took a course in intellectual property and copyright law. Because of my previous background in music as a clarinetist, I wrote a paper entitled The Judicial Criteria Used to Determine Musical Copyright Infringement. I got an A on the paper. My professor was so impressed with what I wrote that he asked if he could send a copy of it to his friend in Los Angeles, a Leslie Charlo, who was then the general counsel of Universal Music or Universal Productions in Hollywood. He reminded me in speaking, he said that in show business, the real power It's not before the camera on the stage, before the footlights, but in the offices of the agents, the lawyers, and executives of motion picture, television, and record companies. A couple of weeks later, my professor, Donald Shapiro, told me he had spoken to the friend to whom he had sent my paper. His friend allegedly said to me, that young man, in writing his paper, knows more copyright law than most of the lawyers working for me. He asked me what my plans were after law school, as my professor did. I said my wife and I were planning to move to Pasadena, California to be near our best friends at the time. Professor Shapiro said that his friend, Leslie Charlo, had said to him that if I wanted a job, I moved to Los Angeles. That's what I did. I moved to Los Angeles and became I worked in the copyright, in the music department. I don't have enough time to go into that whole experience except to say that one time, Bobby Darin and Sandy Dennis came into my office, and Sandy Dennis just set herself on top of my desk. And Bobby Darin said, he said, Mr. Jones, may I call you Clarence? I said, yes. Where did you come from? I said, what do you mean? I said, I came here. He said, you don't understand. He says, you see all those sound stages out there? There is no Negroes, what we called ourselves. There's no Negro anywhere on this lot. There's nothing. Forget about that. There's no Negro anywhere in Universal Sounds anywhere. So how did you get there? And so I told him the story. I never will forget that. So when I was in LA in 1960, I met Dr. King, Martin Luther King Jr., for the first time in February. Little did I know that for the next 7.5 consecutive years, that I would come first his political advisor, and then his personal lawyer and speechwriter. On April 4th, 1968, the date of his assassination. When I met him, I was 29 and he was 31. When I was preparing this speech, my wife reminded me that I could not so easily write speeches today as I did for Dr. King years ago. In some ways, she is correct. In some ways, she is not. I remembered when I was a board member of the Film Society for Lincoln Center, and I was selected to be a member of a small committee chosen to welcome Charlie Chaplin to Lincoln Center and the United States after he had been barred for years from returning because of his outspoken political views. Privileged to be among those who personally greeted him and held his hands, I looked closely at his silver gray, wavy hair and blue eyes, and listened to his words as he accepted the Film Society award to him. That's when I knew, as I have later come to understand, once you have mastered a craft, in his case, the craft of acting, or the craft of writing or music, you may do it slower than before, but the quality of your performance is not diminished. So I hope you will accept my remarks this evening, notwithstanding that I am no longer the same speechwriter I was during the 1960s for Dr. King. It should not be a surprise to you that music, especially gospel music, was the backbone of the civil rights movement under Dr. King's leadership. There was hardly a time when I would be with him at different places in the South as well as outside of the South, whether meeting in a church or a large assembly hall, when each meeting would start and end with gospel music. In speaking to a luncheon of colleagues, of teachers and administrators, I told them about how I was in Paris when Obama was first elected. And I was in Paris at a conference sponsored by the Mikhail Gorbachev Foundation for former Nobel Peace Prize laureates. And while I was there, I met Lech Walesa from Poland. He could speak no English. And so he came over to me with his translator, and he held my hand. And he described to me what was going on in Poland. And he said, you know, Mr. Jones, this is through the translator. He said, we watched your Dr. King on television. And we watched and we heard this song, We Shall Overcome. And we didn't understand, so we had the words translated to us. He's holding my hand, all this, you know, being translated. And there came a time, he said, Mr. Jones, when it was like the peak of the greatest demonstration we had had against the Polish government. There were 5,000 Polish shipyard workers standing in the Gdansk shipyards singing, We Shall Overcome. Mr. Jones, the next day, the government fell, and I became the president of Poland. That's the power of your music. In 1964, the same year that Dr. King was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, he got a request to write a statement opening the 1964 Jazz Festival in Berlin, Germany. The task of preparing that statement was assigned to me. This is what I wrote, and this was issued as Dr. King's message. Quote, God has wrought many things out of oppression. He has endowed his creatures with the capacity to create, and from this capacity has flowed the sweet songs of sorrow and joy that have allowed man to cope with his environment and many different situations. Jazz speaks for life. The blues tell the story of life's difficulty. And if you think for a moment, you will realize that they take the hardest realities of life and put them into music, only to come out with some new hope or some sense of triumph. This is triumphant music. Modern jazz has continued in this tradition, singing the songs of a more complicated urban existence. When life itself offers no order and meaning, the musician creates an order, meaning from the sounds of the earth which flow through his instrument. It is no wonder that so much of the search for identity among American Negroes was championed by jazz musicians. Long before the modern essayists and scholars wrote of racial identity as a problem for a multiracial world, musicians were returning to their roots to affirm that which was stirring within their souls. Much of the power of our freedom movement in the United States has come from this music. It has strengthened us with its sweet rhythms when courage began to fail. It has calmed us with rich harmonies when the spirits were down. And now jazz is exported to the world. For in the particular struggle of the Negro in America, there was something akin to the universal struggle of modern man. Every day, everybody has the blues. Everybody longs for meaning. Everybody needs to love and be loved. Every night, everybody needs to clap hands and be happy. Everybody longs for faith. In music, especially this broad category called jazz, there is a stepping stone toward all of these. Close quote. I was once asked, I may have said this earlier, at a dinner party among a group of people years ago, If I had to choose between being deaf or blind, which would I choose? So I asked them at what part of my life. And they said, middle of your life. So without hesitation, I chose I'd rather be blind. When asked why, I responded, the continued ability to hear music would enable me to imagine the beauty of the music I heard and to imagine what the immediate and less immediate world around me looked like. With some trepidation, returning to Juilliard to speak to you, I humbly accept this honor that you bestow after all these years. Naturally, I am saddened that my beloved parents could not see this award, and equally saddened that my beloved Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. himself could not also be here. Although my once superb memory has diminished, I am blessed to have both sight and hearing this evening. And when I heard Anthony play, that's when I knew. I'm 89, maybe I'll make 90, maybe, it doesn't matter. As Dr. King said, I've been to the promised land. I've looked over. And I've seen and heard music. I've heard the beauty of music that I will never, ever forget. And I saw things at the Juilliard School of Music that also made me feel good, because it made me feel that 72 years later, since I was there, I can remember a lot. You understand? I can remember that room just like it was yesterday. So I thank you. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I don't want to embarrass some people, but I see some people I love so much who are here. And so keep on keeping on. Keep on keeping on. Don't let, please, don't let anybody, you hear what I'm saying? Yeah. What you are doing at Juilliard, I didn't know what you are doing. You are creating and making people who can make dreams, who can make people dream, who can make people imagine and make people hope. Do it with their talent. Take whatever talents they've been endowed with and polish it and make it like gold and diamonds. I mean, please. I saw some young people. I know I'm going to live along. I saw some young people and I thought to myself, I said, Jesus, it's okay. I've arrived here. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, yes, I'd be delighted to take a couple questions. Now, don't. She asked whether I'd be delighted to take a couple questions. Now, hold on, let me just say, sometimes images can tend to give you the wrong impression. Now, the reason I use this cane is because as you get older, falling is one of the greatest things that can happen to people. But I don't want you to think by using this cane that I can't move. Do you understand? I mean, I can still do some steps. I just want you to know that. I'm just making my case. Okay, you understand? Hey, my brother.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay.
This was a real
I'll
pleasure.
answer any
and such an
questions.
honor. So we'll take a couple questions. Does anyone have a question for Dr. Jones?
We have a mic. We have mics, so Annie will bring it to you. I would start. I'll just start, and then well, I hope to hear from a student or two, but no pressure.
No pressure.
I would say that when you think about the philosophy of what the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King represents today,
Yes.
and I know that you work at this constantly
Yes.
through the center at Stanford and also
Yes.
as a citizen.
Yeah.
How do you see it living most palpably today? How does it live on most vibrantly?
Okay, let me just frame the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. In 12 years and 4 months, from 1956 until April 4th, 1968, with the exception of the Emancipation Proclamation and the presidency of Abraham Lincoln, Martin Luther King Jr. may have done more to achieve political, racial, social justice and equality in the United States of America more than any other event or person in the previous 240 years of this country. He understood that Negroes, as we would characterize, only 12% of the population. No way that 12% of the population was going to impose this great desire to be free on 88%. It wasn't going to happen. 88% of the white population wasn't going to happen. Now, we were being besieged by the left, which told us you had to kick the white man's butt and take up arms against him if you wanted. No, we weren't going to do that. And by the way, don't get confused. When Dr. King was committed to nonviolence. He was committed to nonviolence. First of all, he deeply believes it, based upon his religion and his beliefs of Gandhi. But he was a smart, strategically smart person. He knew that those of us, those people who were opposed to what we were seeking to do, he knew that there's nothing they wanted us more to do than engage in violence. He knew that if we engaged in violence, it would be the violence that it would obscure and prevent the message of what we're trying to say. So what we had to do was to prevent those people who opposed us from using the violence, preventing our message being heard. He also was he knew a history, not only biblical history, knew the Talmud, and he knew Negro history, African American history. We used to discuss that, and he knew, power. Frederick Douglass says that power conceives nothing without a demand and never has and never will. So I look at today all the challenges. And I keep my eye on the drinking gourd. I keep my eye focused. The solution for making fundamental change, climate, political, whatever it is based upon power. And power is based upon voting. Power is based upon voting. If you do not vote, you can run your mouth all you want. You can carry all the placards you want. You can carry all the banners that you want. Useless. Waste of time. You want to deal with fundamental change? More powerful than a Glock 21. And a 45 and an AK-47 is the voter registration card. That's more powerful than anything you can have today. And I'm not going to get into politics. So don't get upset about who's president, not president, because you know what? I know something about how you can bring about change. I know, for example, I don't care what the press says. I don't care what the president says. I don't care what they say. I just know that if the overwhelming, and I'm talking about overwhelming, and at least 80%, let's do that. If 80% of the African American vote, and 80% of the Hispanic vote, and 80% of the women vote come out, the current occupant in the White House is history. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Okay? Now, my own personal, the only thing I will say, see, I've seen 45 males be president of the United States. And you know, when you keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, and you keep getting the same result. No, you just, we had 45 male presidents. Now, I'm not saying anything. When you have 45, you get the same result. Maybe you should think about putting a non-male president. You know what I'm saying? I'm not calling for any political endorsement. I'm just saying, but one of the things, you're not going to change the result if you keep doing the same thing over and over and over. So, I'm ready to campaign.
Yeah, we have time for at least one or two more questions. Yes. If you could tell Dr. Jones who you are and what you study and all the rest.
Hi, I'm Marshall Estrin.
And what do you do here?
I'm a composer, undergrad.
Undergraduate. What kind of music do you compose?
Modern music.
Modern music.
I wanted to ask, was there ever an instance while you were working with Dr. King where you directly used your musical experience?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, that's a very good question. I may have mentioned it earlier, is that I think I had somewhat of an advantage because I had, even as a lawyer when I was a student, I had a very good memory, I had a really very good memory. So much so when I was arguing cases in the federal court, appellate case. I would sometimes have the audacity to correct the judge if he got the quotation wrong, the case knew, because I knew it. I knew exactly what the case held, and I knew what the citation was. I drafted a speech for Dr. King, and I had put pause, repeat. And then after he gave the speech, he said, "You're scary." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You're right in my head. Pause, repeat." He says, "I know." I said, "Well, I listened to you." See, when I would draft things for him, I could carry around in my head, thanks to the Juilliard musical training, okay, and having a good memory. I could carry around it could be 5 or 6 days later, I could still hear. Not only, it's not so much listening to remembering the words, but I could particularly hear the cadence, And it's not just, it's not just playing the notes, as they say, but I could hear the cadence. And so I would be able to write words that fit comfortably for his cadence. So that helped me.
Let me give you a little glass of water.
Yes.
One more question. Yes.
Hi, Dr. Jones. I'm Bethlehem Hadgu.
Where are you?
Over here.
Oh, yes.
Hi. I'm a violist undergrad, and my question is, what do you think Dr. King and you would say to Black students specifically in a very white predominantly space where we can feel sometimes excluded, isolated, invisible, and very in a dark place?
Okay. First of all, he would say, when you get up in the morning, go to bed at night, look in the mirror. And he would tell you, like the nuns, which I didn't say in my speech. You know what the nuns used to tell me? And I'm going to answer more directly, but you know what the nuns used to tell us when I was in Catholic boarding school? They would say, Master Jones, we love you. Be a good boy. Jesus loves you. And you are beautiful. Master Jones, Jesus loves you. We love you. Be a good boy, and you are beautiful. That was giving us a sense of, so first, I would ground myself. So, standing in front of a mirror, who you are does not depend upon what some third party says or says about you or to you. Now, there is a way in comfortably, if you are comfortable with yourself, there is a way of comfortably saying to third parties that you want them to understand that you're not comfortable in either what they have been saying to you directly, or may not even be comfortable in their interaction with you. Now you can do this without being discourteous. You can do this out of love or yourself. You see? I love myself. You know what I'm saying? I think I'm the most baddest, beautiful thing walking the earth. You know what I'm saying? Now, hold on. Whether it is objectively true is irrelevant. You understand what I'm saying? It doesn't have to be objectively true. But it has to be, and eternalized. So therefore, if someone doesn't treat me that way, that's their problem, that ain't mine. And maybe I can help them and educate how they should come to understand me and whom I represent so that they too can be a better person. You can learn, I'm gonna really get deep now. I teach a 15-week course, which I created, taught at Stanford Graduate School, taught at the University of San Francisco. The name of the course is From Slavery to Obama, Renewing the Promise of Reconstruction. And what I do is I take the students on a journey. And I tell them, in the discipline of academics and study, I still believe there are facts. I mean, really, there are facts. Not imagined facts, there are facts. So I take the students on a journey about the facts of the institution of slavery. So I say, after you look at the facts of the institution of slavery and its companion supporting doctrine of white supremacy, you have to ask yourself whether or not generations and generations of white people who are raised under that institution and influenced by the institution and ideology, whether they can be free of that disease. Notwithstanding the best intentioned person, Jesus, So I have I have a controversial thing, which I guess you're going to take back the award when I tell you.
Not going to happen.
And that is on the basis of historical empirical evidence. For a large part of the generations of this period of time, I am not talking about today necessarily, but if you look at the overwhelming evidence, I mean, the evidence is irrefutable that the majority of white people have to presumptively, until proven otherwise, be regarded as racist. That doesn't mean that every white person is a racist. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm only saying, but if you look at the evidence, about generation after generation over the years of how white culture has been, you have to say, I mean, why do you think Ebony magazine was created by John Johnson? Ebony magazine was created because it was clear that black people, at least in John Johnson, they didn't think that white people saw us as we see us. That doesn't mean that white people are bad. It just means that the decades of historical data that you've been subjected to has placed some limitations upon your ability to deal with the dominant consequential effects of the institution of slavery and its ideology of white supremacy. Did you hear what I said? Now, in law, pertaining to criminal law, there's a presumption of innocence. And the presumption, this is a presumption you are presumed X until proven otherwise. Okay? So I'm just saying, don't say white folks, don't get upset with me. I'm just telling you what the historical institution says, If you got evidence you can prove to the contrary, I'm welcome to hear it. Okay? Touchy subject, right? Real. Doubt it? Read James Baldwin. Read Lorraine Hansberry. You don't have to go to Malcolm X. Just read James Baldwin over and over. Read W.E. Du Bois. Listen to the poems of Langston Hughes. What can be more powerful than that section? A dream drying up like a raisin in the sun. What's it talking about? Talking of the dreams and aspiration of being a Negro at that time, of being black in America. Well, that's the reality of the black experience in America. Well, how did that black experience get that way? Hey, it got that way by the power, by the sheer political power of the institution of slavery and its supporting ideology of race supremacy. Now, those are the historical facts. I love you.
Thank you for coming. I've just been notified that there's a copy of Dr. Jones's book for each of the students who are here, and I guess we'll see what happens after that. But we'd like to thank you once again.
Totally, brother.
And then, can we...
I would just say thank you again to Renee and all of the people who made this possible. And I hope you'll all come and say hello to Dr. Jones. And thank you so much for being with us tonight for this lecture. Thank you.